Hi, it's Mike Chen. Time travel has been a fascinating topic that's been largely explored in a multitude of written works of science fiction and countless sci-fi films for many years. But what's even more interesting is that tales of time travel go much further back in our history. With the existence of a variety of ancient legends and myths from different parts of the world, which seem to be literal interpretations of what could be actual examples of time traveling, some of us just can't help but ask, did certain ancient civilizations possess some knowledge of time travel? Well, though we can't answer this definitively just yet, let's take a look into some of the ancient texts which mention tales of people who have supposedly defied all laws of logic, space, and time. One of the centuries-old stories that we will be talking about is the tale of the Seven Sleepers. The story of the Seven Sleepers of Ephesus is a tale that is quite significant in both the Christian and Islamic tradition. The Christian interpretation of the story goes like this. During the persecutions overseen by the Roman Emperor Decius sometime in 250 AD, 7 young men were accused of being worshippers of Christianity. These individuals were given some time to renounce their faith, but instead they chose to surrender their material possessions by giving them to the poor and retiring to a mountain cave. Inside this cave, the 7 young men prayed and eventually fell asleep. When they awoke, they thought they had only slept for a day, but when they wandered into the city to buy food, they were astounded to find buildings with crosses of Christianity attached to them. And so they came to the stunning realization that they had not slept for just one night, but for 200 years. And they had awoken at a time when Christianity had already spread across the vast expanse of the Roman Empire. A similar tale about these sleepers can be found in Surah 18 of the Quran, referred to as the story of the companions of the cave. It tells almost the exact same story as the Christian version, only the Quran does not provide the exact number of people of the cave who had miraculously been transported a couple centuries into the future. There are also several examples of time travel found in the Bible, and one of them is a story about the disappearance of Jeremiah as told in the book of Baruch. In the first part of this book, Jeremiah is told by God that Jerusalem will be destroyed and that he had to bury and protect the vestments of the temples. After that, he is to go into exile with his people until the day comes that God would allow them to return. But before the destruction of Jerusalem, Jeremiah instructed Abimelech, a eunuch, to bring back figs from the orchard of Agrippa. Abimelech, however, ends up falling asleep in the orchard, and when he woke up, he was told by an old man that he has slept miraculously for the last 66 years. One of the very first stories that describes time travel can be found in the Hindu epic Mahabharata, an ancient text which is believed to have been written no later than 400 BCE. This tale in the text follows a king, his daughter, in their quest to find her the most suitable husband. Revati was the only daughter of King Ravataka Kurmi, a monarch who ruled the prosperous kingdom of Kusathali. Because the king thought his daughter was so beautiful and accomplished that no one could prove good enough to marry her, he took her to Brahmalok, the home of the creator Brahma, to seek the powerful god's help in finding his daughter the perfect suitor. When they arrived, Brahma was listening to a musical performance, so they had to patiently wait until the performance was complete before the king could pay his respects and make his request to the god. However, once he did so, Brahma only laughed at the foolishness of the king. The god revealed that during the time that they had waited in his home, 108 yugas had already passed on earth, with each yuga representing around 4 million years. With the king and daughter completely astonished over how much time had passed on earth during their short stay, Brahma had to explain to them that time runs differently in different places of existence, which is interestingly similar to how modern physics and astronomers conceptualizes space-time today. Another ancient text that we will be discussing in this video is the Buddhist text of Pali Canon, which, like the previous stories, also mentions the relativity of time. It is written in this collection of scriptures that in the heaven of the 30 devas, or the place of gods, time passes at a different pace and people live much longer. For example, 100 years on earth is equivalent to just a single day passing in the heaven of the gods. The last story about time travel in this video comes from the Japanese legend of Urashima Taro. Urashima Taro is the protagonist of the legend about a fisherman who rescued a turtle from harm. The turtle then turned out to be the daughter of the Emperor of the Sea. To personally thank him and reward him for his actions, Taro was brought to the bottom of the sea to visit the palace of the dragon god, where he met the Emperor and Princess Otohime. Taro stayed in the underwater palace for 3 days, but he eventually decided to go back home to his village where his aging mother lived. And so he asked the princess's permission to leave, and before he left, she gave him a mysterious box that will supposedly protect protect him from danger so long as he never opened it. However, when he reached land, he discovered that 300 years had already passed since he had left the village and traveled to the bottom of the sea. In grief of all that he had lost, he opened the box the princess gave him, which let out a cloud of white smoke. Suddenly, Taro aged rapidly, and from the sea, he heard the voice of the princess reveal that kept inside the special box she gave him was actually his old age. Of course, a lot of you might be thinking, okay, these are just stories, they're not real. But all the stories and the texts I just mentioned in this video, they all paint the picture of time travel that modern science has theorized it today. That time is relative, it's not absolute, and that the past, present, and future all exist simultaneously. Alright guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you believe, first of all, that time travel is possible? Do you believe that our ancestors somehow had the capacity to travel through time? And do you think there are time travelers among us right now? Alright, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you later.